सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्या संप्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंश ऋषिभ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः. So we were in the seventh Vakya of the third Brahmanam of the fourth chapter, which is the Swayam Jyoti Brahmanam. Here, Shankaracharya was refuting the views of the Buddhists. So we already saw last time in the last class that there are four types of Buddhists are there. Two of them, the Sautrantika and Vaibhashika, they accept external objects. Okay, they say that objects are different from the subjective consciousness or the subject which actually perceives the objects. And one of them says that the objects can be perceived. Okay, the objects can be known through sense perception. The other accepts external objects, but they say that it cannot be perceived, it can only be inferred. But both of them accept external objects. Then there is the Yogachara or the Kshanika Vijnana Vadin, who does not accept an external object at all. He says that everything is only consciousness or Vijnanam, but this Vijnanam itself is Kshanika or transitory or momentary. Now all these three Buddhists actually consider the subject in the similar manner, that subject is Kshanika Vijnana. Subject is a Vijnana. In fact, the first two also, even though they say that objects are different, but they claim that objects can illumine themselves and all that. Okay, they can reveal themselves, etc. So these are the three types of Buddhists we saw. And then the fourth one is the Shunyavadin or the Madhyamika Buddhists, who says that both subject, object, everything is all only Maya, and there is nothing, there is only nothingness or Shunyam. Now these are the four Buddhists. In fact, their views are actually summarized here in this paragraph, which we saw last time. Okay. So having presented these views, Shankara then sets out to negate them. In fact, he says that all these Buddhists, whatever they say, they do not accept an Atma other than the Buddhi. So, and the Atma, which is again Nitya Buddha Mukta Swabhava, correct? For us, this Atma is consciousness, but this consciousness is the one which even lights up the Buddhi for us, and which is always there, which is the invariable in each and every cognition, which is there always, which is Nitya, correct? Which is eternal. Now the Buddhists are not accepting there is a separate Atma Jyoti other than the Buddhi. In fact, that is what is taught in the seventh Vakya, correct? That the Jyoti, when every other Jyoti is resolved or extinguished, the Atma Jyoti alone is still there, which lights up even the Swapna Jagat and also the one who perceives the Swapna Jagat, correct? The dreamer and the dream world, all of that is lighted up by this Atma only, the Atma Jyoti, which is Vyatirikta, is what established. It was established by using a certain inference also. Bhashyakara used a certain Anumana, and for that there were objections from the Charvaka, which was dealt with in the previous sixth Bhashya itself. Now in the seventh, he is taking up the Buddhists. So Buddhists also do not accept a Vyatirikta Atma other than the Buddhi, a self which is conscious and which is other than the Buddhi is not accepted by the Buddhists also. In fact, here one point which we have to understand is there is a modern tendency to equate Buddhism with Advaita. Okay, there are many scholars. Maybe they just want to get some PhD, means if you start some study and you can always arrive at any conclusion. Okay, you can take some quotations and interpret it in your own way. In fact, if Buddhism is the same as Advaita, then I don't think there should be a separate Buddhism itself. Why should there be even a Buddhism then? Because Buddha was born as a Hindu only. And if he had taught only Advaita, which is Vedanta, then there should not be any Buddhism. There should be only Vedanta really. And if they still say that there should be a Buddhism and all that, in fact, it's not the same as Vedanta. In fact, if you go and talk to real Buddhists, I have done that even in Sri Lanka and all that, they do not say that what the Buddha taught is really Advaita. Okay, or Buddha never taught about any Brahman or the Atman being Brahman. They are very clear. We talk about Nairatmyam, they say. There is no Atma. The not self alone, we are teaching and all that. So that being the case, I don't think there is any there is any case for saying that Buddhism is same as Advaita really. Or even if some people may claim that, I don't think neither the Advaitins, our Purvacharyas, saw it like that, correct? If Shankara thought that Buddhism is same as Advaita, he wouldn't have summarized their views as a Purva Paksha and try to refute it. So we just go with whatever our Acharyas have summarized here. And also even now, I don't think Buddhism and Advaita are same, really speaking. So that thing we don't even have to consider, I think. So here, having said that, so Bhashyakara here very clearly say that these Buddhist teaching are all contradictory to the Shreyo Margaha. The Shreyo Margaha means that the path which will give you moksha, correct? Which will give you the highest good, the ultimate good. It is contradictory or it will not give you that. The Vaidika Marga is the Shreyo Marga. See, Vaidikasya Shreyo Margasya Pratipaksha Bhuta, he says. So Bhashyakara does not accept the Buddhist as teaching some Advaita and all that. He is very clearly saying that whatever they are teaching is against this Vaidika Mata and against whatever is really good for you, and it's not going to give you any moksha. Now, first he takes the Bhahyaha Arthaha Asti Tatra Tan Prati Uchate. So he is now first negating the views of the Sautrantika and Vaibhashika who accept an external object other than the Buddhi, okay, or the subject. See, now, if you go back here, Bhashyakara himself uses the analogy of a ghata and a lamp and all that, okay, a light source which lights up the ghata. And sometimes he says that when the ghata itself is shining in a certain manner, you cannot differentiate between the ghata and the light separately, and you may think that ghata itself is luminous. Okay, the pot itself is luminous. Like that also mistakes can happen. In fact, why he is giving this analogy and even saying this is because the Atma alone is really the luminous entity. Okay, the one which shines, everything else shines after, correct? In fact, our famous Arati, whenever we do in our temple, what do we say? We say that natatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyam agnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. So tameva bhantam, this Atma alone is the one which shines. Anubhati sarvam, everything else shines after really, but there is a confusion that people take the buddhi itself as Atma. So there is a consciousness which is other than this body mind sense complex. It is not easily recognizable. The Viveka Buddhi is not there. That is similar to sometimes taking the pot itself as luminous. The way the light falls on the pot, sometimes it looks as though the pot itself is bright and shining and all that. But in reality, it is not like that. Similarly, the Buddhi is Sattva Guna Pradhana, correct? The Antakarana itself is Sattva Guna Pradhana. It is made up of the Sat aspect of the Pancha Mahabhutas. So that being very subtle, it is able to manifest this consciousness in a manner where it is very difficult to differentiate the consciousness from the ahankara and the buddhi. So this antakarana or the internal organ, it is very subtle, and when the consciousness is shining through that, it is as though that they are one and the same. Like even sometimes we mistake the part itself to be luminous, even though the light is different and the part itself is not, doesn't have the ability to shine by itself, correct? In a dark room, we don't notice the part really. We require a light for the part to be cognized. Now, in this again, this analogy is also useful for us in another way. What is that? That both the light and the part are still only objects of knowledge for our own consciousness, correct? For a different subject. So even though light can actually illuminate a part, but when you look at both light and part as an object of knowledge, they both are same. In fact, there is no difference in them as an object of knowledge. The only difference is that light doesn't require another light for it to be known by us. But a part requires a light, a source of light to be known. That is the only difference. But otherwise, as an object of knowledge, they are both the same. Now, even here, there is a difference of opinion between the Buddhist and the Vedantin. So the Bhahyarthavadis are there, correct? Those who accept the Bhahyarthas, they say that Swatma Avabhasakatvam is there for the Ghata Dehe. They say that even though we say that Ghata and all this part and the light, etc., and the part is lighted up by the light, etc., like this. But in reality, it is not like that. Consciousness alone is appearing as this part and light and all that, and they are self-luminous by themselves. So for this, Bhashyakara doesn't accept this particular point. First he takes up, and then he says that definitely part cannot be said that it is like it has avabhasakatvam by itself, correct? It doesn't have any luminosity, or it cannot make itself known, or it cannot make itself revealed. Therefore, and we are very clear that only when the light comes into contact with the part is known, and when the light is removed, it is not known. By this Anvaya Vyatireka, we are very clear that part cannot be having any luminosity of its own. Therefore, Bhashyakara refuted that. Okay, I think we came up to Tasmat. Okay, even when we said this, this Purva Pakshi said that no, that is fine. But then the light itself is it does not require anything else to be revealed, correct? So in his mind, this light analogy is very important for them, because they say that like the light does not require another light to be revealed, and it is able to reveal the part. The buddhi does not require any other illuminator like the Atma. So buddhi, like the lamp, is self-luminous, and it is also illuminating the objects. This is their theory. Okay, so they are looking at the analogy of the pot and the lamp in that manner. Okay. But Bhashyakara is looking at the same analogy differently. So he says that for me, both the pot and light are same. There is no difference. Okay. There is no Vishesha there. Why? Because both are known. Both are, as an object of knowledge, both are same. They have to be known by something other than themselves. Okay. So from that standpoint, both are one and the same for me. So even if you talk about the lamp being the illuminator of the pot, etc., and it does not require another illuminator for it to be known, but still it is known. That is the point. Very important. It is known by something other than the light, correct? So he says, this is where I think we left. Tasmat pradipaha anya avabhasyaha api san atmanam ghatam cha avabhasayati. Okay. So this is in fact, okay, before this, let us read this. Tada vetirikta avabhasyatvam tavat avashyam bhavi, he says. Yadacha evam. So even for the light, the vetirikta avabhasyatvam means what? The necessity for it to be revealed by another subject, correct? Which is consciousness, is required. The light cannot know itself. The light also is to be known by something which is other than the light only. This is what was said. But even then the Purvapakshi comes and says, no, nanu yatha ghataha chaitanya avabhasyatve api vetiriktam alokantaram apekshate natu evam pradipaha. So he says, what you say is, I look at the analogy differently. Okay. Like even the pot requires the light to be illuminated, but the light does not require any other light to be illuminated. Okay. Natu evam pradipaha anyam alokantaram apekshate. So light does not require another light to be illuminated. Therefore what? Pradipaha anya avabhasyaha api san atmanam ghatancha avabhasyati, he says. So therefore, even though the lamp is known, but that is not what I am trying to, that is not my analogy. My analogy is only this much, that light does not require another illuminator and it illuminates the objects. Like that, the Kshanika Vijnana also can illumine itself and it can illumine the objective world. That is my analogy. But Bhashyakara is saying, even Bhashyakara does not accept that. Okay, so he says, how can the light reveal itself? Okay. So he says, see, Atmanam Ghatancha Avabhasyati, he says, correct? He says, the light reveals itself or lights up itself and also the pot, he says. Now, this point, Bhashyakara does not accept and he gives defects or he sees defects in this particular viewpoint because he says, na swataha parataha va vishesha bhavat, he says. Means, whether the light is, you are saying that the lamp illumines itself and it is illumined or it is illumining others, whatever way it is, I don't see any difference in like the Vishesha Abhava is not there, means whether the between the Ghata and the lamp, I don't see any Vishesha Abhava because for me, both of them are not self-revealing or they do not know themselves, correct? The pot cannot know itself, light cannot know itself. The pot may require the light for it to be known, but that is not relevant here. What we are saying is, from the standpoint of it being known, they both are same. Okay, they do not, whether they are illumined by themselves or they require another thing to be illumined, correct? Swataha parataha va. So you may say that lamp does not require another lamp, but that is irrelevant to us. What we say is both pot and lamp are similar. Vishesha Abhava is there, means there is no special difference between them. There is no difference between them. Why? Because yatha chaitanya avabhasyatvam ghatasya tatha pradipasyapi chaitanya avabhasyatvam avishishtam, he says. So from our standpoint, Bhashyakara again reiterates the same point. We look at it like this. Both pot and lamp require a chaitanya, a conscious entity to be known. Okay, they have to be lighted up by the conscious entity. Then only you will know that the lamp is there or the pot is there. Correct. So in that there is a vishishtam, means what? They are similar. There is no difference between them. Both are chaitanya avabhasyatva is there for both of them. They are both are being lighted up by a conscious entity only. In that there is no difference. And also he further says, Yattu uchyate pradipaha atmanam ghatancha avabhasayati iti tad asat. So whatever he said here, that pradipaha anya avabhasyaha api san atmanam ghatancha avabhasayati, that also we don't accept. We cannot accept that the light illuminates itself. That is in fact contradictory statement, because there cannot be then the karma kartru virodha will come. Okay, the subject and object cannot be the same of a verb. Okay, the subject object, for example, you cannot say eyes can see itself, correct? Eyes can see everything else, but the eyes cannot see itself. Of course, if you go and stand in front of a mirror, you can still say that the eyes can be seen, but still it is not, the eyes are not seeing the eyes, they are only seeing the reflection of the eyes. Okay, so even there, the karma kartru virodha cannot. Karma here is the grammatical karma. Okay, karma here means the object of an action, and karta means the actor or the agent of action. Those two have to be different. The subject and object cannot be the same at the same time. So yada atmanam na avabhasayati tada kidrishaha sahatiyas. See, you say that the lamp lights itself up, correct? But when it was not lighting itself up, how it was, he is asking. Because whenever we talk about illumination, there has to be unillumined state and an illumined state, correct? So when we say the pot is illumined, means before the illumination of the pot was in darkness, means it is covered by darkness. So it was avrita, we say. In Sanskritam, there is a avrita sthiti is there, a state of being in darkness or state of being covered. And then anavrita sthiti also is there, correct? When the light is there, then it is no more in darkness, it is available for cognition. So the non-illumined and illumined, like that, there is a difference in states. Now, if you say the light is lighting itself up, when it was not lighting itself up, how it was, he is asking. So tada kidrishaha syat. Why? Because he says nahi tada pradipasya swataha va parataha va visheshaha kaschid upalabhyate sahi avabhasyaha bhavati yasya avabhasaka sannidhau asannidhau cha visheshaha upalabhyate. So he says, for the pradipa, you cannot say that that there was a time when it was not illumining itself and then it illumined itself. There is nothing like that, correct? There is, you cannot create two different states like that. Okay, so pradipasya swataha va parataha va visheshaha kaschid upalabhyate means that you cannot say that there is an illuminator which was there separately, or it itself is the illuminator for the lamp. Like that, there is nothing there. Why? Because for an illuminator to be there, there has to be a state when it was not illuminated, and then the illuminator comes into contact with that, and then it becomes illumined, he says. Now, like that, it is not there for the lamp. Okay, in the sense that it cannot illuminate itself. We will also finally say that the Atma is the one, or the Chaitanyam is the one which illuminates the lamp also. But according to the Buddhists, there is no other Chaitanyam. Understand that. So in his case, it is a problem for him. So either there is a subject and object cannot be same, also one thing. The other thing is, when you talk about illumination, there has to be a non-illuminated state, and then by coming into contact with the illuminator, it becomes illumined. But like that, nothing like that is there. You cannot show me anything like that. So, nahi pradipasya swatma sannidhihi asannidhihi va shakyaha kalpayitum. So, you cannot say that the pradipa was not in contact with itself. At that time, it was not illuminated. And then it came into contact with itself and then it became illuminated. Correct? It doesn't make any sense. You cannot say anything like that. Or you cannot say that it required another one also, other than itself, something else and all that. So, what asati cha kadachitke visheshe atmanam pradipaha prakashayati Vrishaiva uchyate. So when you are not able to give me this Vishesha, that is, there is a unillumined state and an illumined state like that. It was never there like that for the lamp, and therefore you cannot say that the lamp revealed itself. Correct. Atmanam here means that lamp is self-illumining. That cannot be said. The lamp knows itself, it means, really speaking. That cannot be the case, really speaking. Whatever you say is Mrisha means it is false, it's not correct. So what do we finally say? Our Siddhanta is what? Bhashyakara now. Chaitanya grahyatvam tu ghatadibihi avishishtam pradipasya. So again, he brings the same point. He says that whether it is ghata or pradipa or the lamp, both of them are known by the Chaitanyam only. Correct? Chaitanya grahyatvam means it is, they are, they, grahya means literally meaning grabbing or getting it. Correct? So here getting in the sense of knowing. Correct? Because even in English we say, did you get it? Means, did you know it? So basically here, Chaitanya Grahyatvam means the grasping or the cognition by the sentient consciousness alone. It is the same for whether it is Ghata or the lamp. There is no difference there. Both of them have to be known through by something which is other than themselves, which is this consciousness. Therefore, what? Tasmat Vijnanasya Atmagrahya Grahakatve na Pradipaha Drishtantaha. So now your Pradipa Drishtanta, the way you are giving, it is not proper. You cannot say that Vijnana knows itself and Vijnana also knows the objects. For this you cannot give the Pradipa Drishtanta because Pradipa does not know itself. Pradipa has to be known by a consciousness which is other than itself only, similar to the Ghata. So in that aspect, the Pradipa and the Ghata, the pot and the lamp are one and the same. So you cannot use that as an example to claim that the Vijnanam which you are proposing, the Kshanika Vijnana, knows itself and it also knows the object. That cannot be established using this analogy. So you should not use it, or you cannot use it. Therefore what? In fact, that analogy only fits for us. Because for us, we say that the buddhi is like the lamp and all other external objects are like the ghata, and the buddhi can light it up, but buddhi itself is known by the Atma Chaitanya, which is other than the buddhi and also other than all the objects. Correct? So in fact, this analogy only fits for us. It actually works out well. It will not work out well for the Buddhist. Therefore, what? Chaitanya grahyatvam cha vijnanasya bahya vishayehi avishishtam. Okay, so this Chaitanya grahyatvam means what? That the state of being known by the Chaitanya or consciousness, that is the same whether it is an external object, bahya vishaya or vijnana. Here vijnana is the buddhi you can take, because according to the Buddhist is using the term vijnana and we are actually using the term vijnana maya, correct, in the Upanishad. All these terms which refer to the subject, but both the subject and object are illumined only by this Atma. Okay. The subjective sentient being also is illumined only by the Atma. So both the Vijnana and the Bahya Vishaya, both of them are Chaitanya Grahya. In that there is no difference. They are same. Avishishtam. And further, Chaitanya Grahyatvecha Vijnanasya Kim Grahya Vijnana Grahyata eva Kim va Grahaka Vijnana Grahyata eva iti tatra sandikhyamane vastuni yaha अन्यत्र दृष्टः न्यायः स कल्पयितुं युक्तः न तु दृष्ट विपरीतः. Okay, so now we are talking about a Chaitanya which is other than the Vijnanam. Whatever is proposed as Vijnanam by the Buddhist, we do not accept that it can know itself. So we are saying that the Atma is the one which is actually lighting up the Vijnana and also the external objects, the Bahya Vishayas. Now in this, what is this nature of this Atma now? This Atma, the Atma grahya grahakatve. So here, this Atma itself, grahya vijnana grahyata or grahaka vijnana grahyata, he says. Means this Atma itself is again something which is known or which is only a knower. This is what one has to understand. No, this is a very important point, because if the Atma itself is a known consciousness, if we say, then who is the knower of that? That will become a problem. In fact, it can even go into infinite regress, correct? This infinite regress problem is there everywhere. Even in modern science, it is there, correct? There is a von Neumann paradox, even in quantum physics. Because the quantum physicists are talking about an observer. The observer collapses the quantum system. Then, but who is this observer? What is the nature of this observer? Means they are saying that observer itself, if it is a quantum system again, then there is a problem. Then who collapsed that observer first? That question will come, correct? Like that, it can go into an infinite regress. So there is a paradox there. There is a problem. The nature of the observer is a problem for the scientists. Okay. Similarly, here, if you say, okay, there is a consciousness which is other than the Vijnana and the external objects, which is lighting up both or which is knowing both. But is it that itself, is it known or it is only a knower? Correct? It is a grahya or it is grahaka. That is something which we have to establish now. Now, how do we establish that? Bhashyakara says, is that, so there is a sandeha is there, correct? There is a doubt there. Tatra sandikhyamane vastuni. So the vastu which we are now talking about, the entity which we say is separate from this vijnana and the bhakya vastu, and which is consciousness, and which is the one which knows both of these things, that vastu, there is a doubt regarding that vastu, whether it itself is known or it is only a knower. Now, how do we then come to a conclusion here? Means even there he says, yaha anyatra drishtaha nyayaha saha kalpayitum yuktaha, he says. So whatever in general we observe, correct, in other places, that alone we can take here also as a nyaya or an analogy, not something which is not seen at all. Natu drishta viparita, or you cannot give some analogy which is really in fact contradicted. Okay, the analogy you give should fit, should be proper, and so that alone can be used. So that being the case, he says, Tatacha sati yatha vyatiriktena grahakena bahyanam pradipanam grahyatvam drishtam तथा विज्ञानस्यापि चैतन्य ग्राह्यत्वात् प्रकाशकत्वे सत्यपि प्रदीपवत् व्यतिरिक्त चैतन्य ग्राह्यत्वं युक्तं कल्पयितम्. So now we say that there is something external, and in that case, let us take your own Ghata Pradipa analogy. Like even both Ghata and Pradipa are known by a Vijnana which is other than themselves. Similarly, the Vijnana and all the external objects are also known by a knower who is other than this Vijnana and the objects. So the analogy will only fit our Siddhanta. The analogy is actually, it will not fit your whatever views, okay, your theory. So that's what Bhashyakara is explaining here. He has explained it very clearly, in fact. Okay. So, so the Vyatirikta Chaitanya Grahyatvam is what Bhashyakara wants to establish, correct? That alone is Yuktam Kalpayitam. That alone can be established by the analogy. Natu Ananya Grahyatvam, not the one like you say that the lamp knows itself and lamp lights up the pot. That doesn't actually work out correctly. Therefore, what yascha anyaha vijnanasya grahita sa atma jyotihi antaram vijnana. So finally he says whatever is that which is different from the vijnanam, okay, and which is the one which also knows this vijnana, that is the atma jyotihi, and it is in fact, it is different from the vijnana antaram. Okay, this atma jyoti, that's what the Upanishad also has said, correct? The atma is the jyoti. So now the Buddhist comes to the familiar objection. Then he says, Tada anavastheti chet. What if I say that now you will get into infinite regress? Because then who knows this Atma now? You are talking about an Atma Jyoti, which is other than the Vijnana and the external objects. And then you will get into infinite regress, he says. Bhashyakara says, no, na, why? Grahyatva matram hi tad grahakasya vastvantaratve linga muktam nyayataha natu ekantataha grahakatve tad grahakantara astitve va kadachidapi lingam sambhavati tasmad na tad anavastha prasangaha. So this is a very, very interesting argument. Bhashyakara says that the analogy which we have given you is only with reference to the known things, correct? Grahya matram hi. So whatever is known has to be known by something other than itself. For that only we have given that analogy, that lingam. Lingam means an indication or a sign and all that. So in this case, this analogy is only indicating that whatever is known has to be known by something other than itself. But there is not, we are not talking anything about the knower or the nature of the knower through this analogy. Okay. So natu ekantataha grahakatve tad grahakantara astitve va kadachitapi lingam sambhavati means what? So this grahaka whom we are talking about, whether that knower itself requires another knower or not, that is not being in fact talked about here. In fact, what we maintain is that Atma can never be known as an object, correct? That's the whole teaching. That is the beauty of our teaching, correct? If you take any Upanishad, for example, Kena Upanishad is so directly it is teaching that, correct? Yen manasa na manute yenahur manomatam tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yedidam upasate yet chakshusha na pashyati yena chakshumshi pashyati tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yedidam upasate. Like this, that which is actually cannot be known through the mind, but because of whose presence the mind itself functions as the mind and knows all other things, that is Brahman, and that is not something which is available as this for you to do upasana, correct? Nedam edidam upasate, it is not an object, correct? Yasya matam, tasya matam, matam yasya na vedasaha, avijñatam vijanatam, vijñatam avijanatam, all these things are all, may look contradictory, but it is revealing the nature of this Atma beautifully. So he says, for the one, this Atma is not known, that person knows it, he says. Why? Because this Atma can never be known as an object. That is the point there. And the one who says that, no, I know this Paramatma, I saw this Paramatma with 5 whatever heads, 4 arms, one is having Shankam, Chakram and whatever, everything else you can add there. Some other Ayudha and all that. If you are claiming that you have seen this Paramatma as an object and you are doing Upasana of that, you do not know. Okay. Avijñatam vijanatam. In fact, after in fact, the Guru says all these things, the Shishya says, Manye viditam. I know this Atma. Okay. So, because it is Pratibodha viditam matam, the Kena Upanishads itself says that it is the one which is there in each and every cognition as the invariable, it has to be recognized as it is. So it is only a knower. It can never be known. Therefore, it does not require another knower. Therefore, there is no anavastha. Is that clear? There is no need of any other knower, and there is no regression, infinite regression, all is not there for us. So here, tasmad na tad anavastha prasangaha, because there is no other knower which is required. So vijnanasya vyatirikta grahyatve karanantara apekshayam anavastheti chet. Now the Buddhist is coming to another objection. He says, see, if you want to know the pot, You require light as an instrument, correct? As a karana. Then only the eyes are able to see the part. Like that, now you are saying this Chaitanya, which is other than the Vijnanam, is knowing this Vijnanam. For that, what is the karana? And if you say there is a karana is there, then how did you know that karana is there? For that, again, which karana did you use to know the karana itself? Like this, if you keep on doing that, there is an infinite regress there, he is saying. So he is saying, the anavastha will come because with what karana this Atma Jyoti or the Atma Chaitanyam knows this Vijnanam. It requires a karana, is his implication there. Correct? Now, Bhashyakara does not accept this also. He says there is no rule that there has to be a karana to know something. In fact, he uses the same lamp analogy to establish that also. That is the beauty here. So he says, na niyama abhavat. So there is no rule like that. There is no niyama. Why? Nahi sarvatra ayam niyamaha bhavati. So not in every case it is there that you require an instrument. See, yatra vastuantarena grihyate vastuantaram tatra grahya grahaka vyatiriktam karanantaram syad. So wherever, like in the case of pot, that you are knowing it through the eyes, let us say, then you require a karana in the form of lamp for the pot to be known. Okay, that is fine. So the lamp is other than the grahya, which is the pot, and grahaka, which are the eyes or the mind or whatever you say. Okay. So that is there. But what iti na ekantena niyantum shakyate. So, but you cannot say absolutely that it is a rule that whenever there is a grahya and a grahaka, there is a known and there is a knower, there has to be an instrument. You cannot have a niyama. For example, to know the light, the eyes do not require any other means, correct? So he uses that itself here. So he says, Vaichitriya Darshanat, first he says, okay, because there are different scenarios. It is not uniformly that you always require an instrument, that there are different scenarios are there. Vaichitriya. Katam, how, why? Because Gatastavate Swatma Vyatiriktena Atmana Grihyate. So the Gata is known by something other than itself. Okay. Tatra Pradipadihi Alokaha Grahya Grahaka Vyatiriktam Karanam. So in that case, the lamp, etc., are the Karana, are the instruments which are other than the knower and the known. But Nahi Pradipadi Alokaha Ghatamshaha Chakshuramshaha Va Ghatavat Chakshur Grahyatvepi Pradipasya Chakshuhu Pradipa Vyatirekena Na Bhahyam Alokasthaniyam Kinchit Karanantaram Apekshate. So the first point is further he is explaining here. Nahi Pradipadi Alokaha Ghatamshaha Chakshuramshaha means what? This Pradipadi Aloka, that Karana is other than the Ghata and Chakshus only. It is not part of them, really speaking. Okay, but the other point is what? Ghatavat Chakshur Grahyatvepi Pradipasya Chakshuhu Pradipa Vyatirekena na Bhahyam Alokasthaniyam Kinchit Karanantaram Apekshate. So the eyes do not require, like in the case of pot, to see the lamp, another Karana, there is another light is not required to see this lamp. Okay. Bhahyam Alokasthaniyam Kinchit Karanantaram na Apekshate. So the Chakshus or the eyes does not require another light. Therefore what? Tasmat naiva niyantum shakyate. Therefore you cannot have a general rule saying that always there has to be a Karana. Therefore what? Yatra vyatirikta grahyatvam tatra tatra karanantaram syadeva iti na niyantum shakyate. So what you cannot make it as a rule? The rule that wherever there is a object which is known by something other than that object, there has to be a instrument. Like that you cannot make a rule, he says. Therefore what? Tasmat vijnanasya vyatirikta grahaka grahyatve na karanadvara anavastha. Therefore what we say is, this Atma does not require any karana to know whatever is happening in the mind. Therefore there is no anavastha from the standpoint of the instrument. Karna dwara anavastha also is not there for us. Napi grahaka dwara, nor in the sense that this Atma requires another knower to be known, etc. Both ways there is no anavastha for us, because the Atma is never known. And the Atma does not require any instrument to know buddhi or whatever is happening in the buddhi. Therefore, in both ways, there is no anavastha. Kadachidapi upapadetum shakyate anavastha napi grahaka dwara. So, in both cases, at any time, you cannot say that there is anavastha will come. Therefore, what? Tasmat siddham vijnana vitiriktam atma jyotihi antaramiti. Therefore, it is established that this there has to be an atma jyoti other than the vijnana you are talking about. Okay, and that is the one which is knowing both the vijnanam and the bahya vishayas. So this, up to this, the Sautrantika and Vaibhashika have been negated. Now the Vijnana, Shanika Vijnanavadin is coming, the Yogachara, okay, who says that everything is only Vijnana. He doesn't accept an external object itself. So he is now making his point. Nanu nasti eva bhashyaha arthaha ghatadihi pradipaha va Vijnana vyatiriktaha. He says, other than the Vijnanam, there is nothing external. Everything that is there is only Vijnanam. Now, what is the analogy he will give for this? He will give the dream analogy. So, let us see. Yad vyatirekena nopalabhyate tat tavan matram vastu drishtam yatha swapna jnana grahyam gatapatadi vastu. So, he says that which is known or which is never known as separately from something, correct? If something is never known as separately from something, then that is only that, he says. In fact, in English, when I translate this, yaddi yad vyatirekena nopalabhyate tat tavan matram vastu drishtam, it looks funny, but okay, let me give an example. For example, the pot is always seen, suppose it is a clay pot, it is always that you can never separate it from the clay, correct? You have to always, without cognizing the clay, you can never cognize the clay pot. So the clay pot can never be cognized separately from the clay. That being the case, then what do we say? Clay is nothing, pot is nothing but clay, we say, correct? Tat tavan matram vastu. Pot is nothing but this clay vastu only. So this is known. Okay, like that what? Or he is giving the example of swapna here. Like in the dream, you are seeing pot and pata, ghata, pata. Okay, means ghata is pot, pata is cloth. So pot, cloth, etc. You are seeing different vastus, but you can never differentiate them from your this consciousness, correct? The dream consciousness. So swapna vijnana vyatirekena anupalambhat. So they are not available to you separately from the swapna vijnana, the consciousness, the dream consciousness. Therefore, what? Swapna ghata pratipadehe, swapna vijnana matrata avagamyate. So he says that therefore, whatever objects you saw in the dream, they are all not separate from the dream consciousness. They are all the same vijnanam only. Okay. So you cannot establish them as something different from this vijnana. And now he says, similarly in waking also, tatha jagarite api ghata pradipadehe jagarat vijnana vyatirekena anupalambhat jagarat vijnana matrata eva yukta bhavitum. So like in the dream, this waking world also is the same. In fact, in your dream, when you were dreaming, you did not know, you thought that the dream objects are other than the dreamer or the dreamer's consciousness, but it is not like that. Similarly, in waking also, you may think that the objects are external and I am somebody other than the objects, but in reality, it is all only one vijnanam. There is nothing other than the vijnanam. So there is nothing outside, in fact, really, there is no outside. Everything is only within this consciousness, the vijnana. So, but for him, the problem is, in fact, this may look almost like Advaita, But then they say that this Vijnana is Shanika. That is where all the problem comes. Okay. So, जागरिते अपि घट प्रदीपादेः जागृत विज्ञान व्यतिरेकेण अनुपलम्भात्. So even in the Jagrat, all this part, cloth, etc., cannot be established as separate from consciousness, because in each and every cognition, the consciousness is there, correct? So you cannot separate the object from the object consciousness. Therefore, only this consciousness alone is there, the Vijnana. Jagrat Vijnana Matrata eva yukta bhavitam. We can say that only this consciousness alone is there. That is proper to say. Therefore, what tasmat nasti bhashyaha arthaha ghata pradipadihi vijnana matramevatu sarvam. So he now finally says that there is nothing external like pot, cloth, etc. Only the consciousness, the vijnana alone is there. Vijnana matramevatu sarvam. Everything is only this consciousness. तत्र यदुक्तं विज्ञानस्य व्यतिरिक्त अवभास्यत्वात् विज्ञान व्यतिरिक्तम् अस्ति ज्योतिः अन्तरं घटादेः इव इति तन्मिथ्या सर्वस्य विज्ञानमात्रत्वे दृष्टान्ताभावात्. So now the Vijnanavadi is saying to us, see, whatever you said, that there is something other than this Vijnanam, and that is the one which is lighting up this Vijnanam, and that is the Atma Jyoti. Okay, and it is lighting up similar to how the Gata, etc., also are illumined by something other than themselves. That is not correct. That is false. Tan mithya. Why? Because everything is only Vijnanam. That being the case, where is this example, this analogy, whatever you are giving about Gata, Pradipa, etc., is not correct, because I say that Gata and Pradipa are also Vijnanam only. That being the case, your analogy itself false, he says. There is no analogy for you. In fact, you cannot use that. Vijnana matratve drishtanta abhavat. There is no drishtanta for you. Therefore, everything is only sarvasya vijnana matra, means everything is only vijnana. So, this is the position of the Vijnanavadin, the Yogachara Buddhist. Now, Bhashyakara doesn't accept that. He says, na yavat tavad abhyuvagamat natu bhashyaha arthaha bhavata ekante naiva na abhyuvagamyate. So now, Bhashyakara says, even though you say that there is no external object and there is only consciousness, but still you don't completely dismiss that there is no external object, or there is one, and or neither can you completely dismiss all the objects, nor you can establish that only consciousness is there. Absolutely, you cannot say that there is nothing other than the consciousness. Like that you cannot establish. Okay, therefore, that being the case, as long as you accept certain things, in fact, he has accepted the cognition of a pot, correct? He has accepted the cognition of a cloth, etc. That itself is, that acceptance itself, Bhashyakara says, as long as you are accepting that, you cannot establish absolutely that there are no external objects. Okay, so in your Siddhanta also, you have to accept something other than the Vijnanam. That is the point Bhashyakara is making. But then he comes back and says, no, nanu maya na abhyupagamyate eva, he says. Means what? No, you cannot say that I am actually accepting something other than the consciousness. I do not accept anything other than the consciousness. There is only Vijnana. There are really any Bhashya objects are not there. So, what are you saying? No, Bhashyakara explains. He says, nah. So what you may say that you do not accept anything other than Vijnana, but the implications of whatever you are saying is not like that. Okay, so he says, no. Why? Vijnanam ghataha pradipaha iti cha shabdartha pritaktvat yavat. So the first point he is making is, as long as you are having three words, you are having Vijnanam, ghata and pata. Okay. Now, why are you Pradipa, etc. Correct? You are having all these words, different words, and each word is having a different meaning. Correct? So there is some difference. Otherwise, why are you even using different words? So, yavat, as long as you have this Shabdartha Pritaktatvam is there, correct? Means what? There are different words are there, and each of these words are having different meanings. As long as there are differences in the meaning, then what? Tavadapi Bhahyam Arthantaram Avashyam Abhivagantavyam, he says. If you accept that these words have different meanings, then you have to accept that there is something other than Vijnanam, because the meaning of Vijnanam is not the same as the meaning of Pradeepa or Ghata. Therefore, you have to accept some object other than the Vijnanam. Okay, Avashyam Abhivagantavyam, Bhashyakara. Then what? Vijnanad Arthantaram Vastu Nached Abhivagamyate. Vijnanam Ghataha Pataha Ityevamadinam Shabdanam Ekarthatve Paryaya Shabdatvam Prapnoti Tatha Sadhananam Phalasya Cha Ekatve Sadhya Sadhana Bheda Upadesha Shastra Anarthakya Prasangaha Tat Kartuhu Ajnana Prasangaha Va. Okay, now you can come and say, no. How can you say that we accept different meanings for all these words? All these words only mean Vijnanam, consciousness alone. So Vijnana Arthantaram Vastu Na Ched Abhivagamyate means what? If you say that all these words also mean only Vijnana or consciousness, then what? Then the implication of that is these words like Vijnana, Ghata, Pata, etc. all of them will become Paryaya Shabda, he says. Ekartatve. If they have the same meaning, then they are all synonyms. If they are synonyms, in fact, then all the words are all synonyms only according to you. Then there cannot be any vyavahara, correct? Then what is the difference between sadhana and sadhya? Even you are talking about some moksha sadhana or nirvana. They talk about nirvana. And there are sadhanas are talked about, and nirvana is to be achieved. That is the sadhya, etc. And there is a teaching for that. Upadesha Shastra is there. All of them will become anartha. They will all become worthless, useless. Anarthakya will come. Shastra Anarthakya Prasanga is there. That your Shastra, the Bauddha Shastra itself will become useless, because if you say all words have the same meaning, then how can you even have a sadhya and a sadhana, a means and an end? And that Bheda itself you cannot establish, and whatever teaching you are giving for achieving the end, that also is meaningless. And the one who has created this, Tat Kartuhu Ajnana Prasanga, he says, your Buddha will become an Ajnani, ignorant person for giving such a theory. Okay. So like this, Bhashyakara is taking on the Vijnanavadi, the Yogachara Buddhist. In fact, further he is going to give some more arguments. We will see that next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Namaskara Mahade. Shubha Dinam.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ ಗುರುಜಿ.
Okay.